Welcome Jacquie Jordan, Emmy-nominated television producer, author of Get on TV, and the recent book Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to Be Your Business Partner, founder of TVGuestpert.com.
Hi, I'm Jacquie Jordan, hosted here by TVGuestpert.com. We're the industry talk show with the experts. We repeat here tonight at 10 p.m. and Sunday at 5 p.m. on AM KZSB News Press Radio, Santa Barbara 1290. And if you're driving home, drive. It looks like it's a wet night here today. And and we can find us on the homepage at tvguestpert.com or on Sony's Blip Television. If you want to friend us, you can join us on Facebook at Jacquie Jordan Inc., tvguestpert.com, or sign up for our free newsletter on the front page of tvguestpert.com. Some of you have been writing in because our show is sponsored by the non-pharmaceutical hologram chip that helps you sleep at night and gives you energy during the day. And some of you have been asking how this works. And I actually have a sample of the power chip. It's just, this is it. And you put it on your body like that. And this particular chip gives you energy. So if you're driving, you will not be able to see what I'm talking about, but you can, of course, watch us on Blip TV and get a sample of it. And you can find out more information also on cx2wristband.com and also in TV Guestpertville. We've had some really great success. We want to give a shout out to TV Guestpert and author Darren Campo for his best-selling book, Alex Details Revolution. It's the paperback, and we've gave away over 10,000 on Amazon. It's been number one on Amazon Sci-Fi and Fantasy, and is a really great book. And then we've got the sequel came out called Alex Details Rebellion. Jacquie Jordan Inc. Publishing had the privilege of putting out into the marketplace these really great stories. I'm joined today in the studio with studio producer Richard Dugan, executive producer Richard Wayner, our production assistant Stephanie Cobian, and Dylan Haley, who handles all of our productions. So I am actually not alone, even though you're listening just to me. We've got a great show today. If you're driving home with us or going to be listening or watching us on television, we're going to be talking about the stories that, the news stories, the media stories that impacted us both personally and, out in the world from 2010, what to expect in 2011. Later this hour, we're going to have guest expert Scott Ventrella. He is the author of Me, Inc. and Positive Dynamics, and also the author of Power of Positive Thinking in Business. He's an executive coach, and he's going to talk about how some of those stories impacted us personally and how we took that into the world. We'll also be on the show this hour. We're going to have Shari and Brille. She's a media industry analyst, and she also writes the Brille Beat, and she is quite dynamic, and you'll certainly enjoy speaking with her. But first up, we're really privileged to have her. She's definitely my kind of girl. She is the senior editorial producer for CNN's network booking division in Atlanta. She joins us from Atlanta. She oversees special project development across and develops news sources for all of CNN's platforms. And she supervises live interviews during breaking news coverage, which means she probably takes it for granted because she just does it in her day-to-day job. But the truth is, she gets to witness history as it happens from the news desk. Joining us on the line is Pamela Sellers. Pamela, thank you so much for being on our show today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, what I love about what you do and how it certainly it impacts the dialogue over here at TV Guestpert and on the Jacquie Jordan Radio Show is that you are in the trenches of creating television and stories. And how, give us a little bit about that process and what it looks like in your day-to-day life, because all we get to see is what's on TV.
Sure. And I would be a fool to not let everyone know that I'm just one of many, many producers here at CNN that help do all those nice, kind things that you said about me. I'm part of a team of what we call booking producers. There's over 80 of us that extend throughout the different CNN networks and CNN brands. And we're essentially in the business of maintaining sources and being able to step into place when breaking news happens. So we're either doing what I call planning or reacting, if you will, to news. When we're planning, we're going out and finding the very best people to talk about news as it's developing. When we're reacting, of course, that's breaking news, and our job is really to help give everybody account of what is happening in those first 2 to 5 minutes until local affiliates or reporters can step into place and provide us with pictures, et cetera. So a lot of work on the phone, a big Rolodex, and a lot of quick decision-making to get it all together.
You know, I call the job, having done a similar positions myself, like being in the trenches, but I like how you refer to it as the high-heel gig and a low-heel gig.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, we're ambassadors here for CNN. Quite frequently, we're the first voice that a source will hear. We can also be the first person that anyone who's involved in a news story can see. And so it's really up to us to maintain a sense of composure and calm and really educate the individual who's a newsmaker. You know, I mean, let's think about this. There's people who are professional news experts. You know, a lot of your audience is probably that. Then there's individuals that have had no experience at this at all, and they're really stepping into it. And it's our job to serve as that ambassador. Now, sometimes we're doing that in an environment that's very professional and very established. Maybe it's a town hall, maybe it's a presidential debate. Then there's those really unfortunate circumstances where someone's had something very devastating happen to them. It's our job to literally take them by the hand and kind of walk them through this process. And sometimes that's in a snowstorm, sometimes it's amid the wreckage of their home. That's what we refer to as those low-heel gigs.
You know, I was a producer for Geraldo's talk show in New York City during the O.J. Simpson trial, so that was quite an interesting time to be in doing television. What are some of the stories that you've witnessed that are kind of, part of the American history or part of the storytelling process?
But I think you should really kind of pat yourself on the back because aside from maybe Baby Jessica or the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, the O.J. Simpson story really put long breaking news on the map for the cable networks.
It sure didn't feel like it at the time.
Well, in a lot of ways, I owe a hat tip to you because it was producers like you that really helped. You know, I came in '97 right off of O.J. and it's producers like you that really helped us kind of figure out what we needed to do on this particular medium, this particular platform. My first breaking news story was the Heaven's Gate cult, and it gave me the opportunity to really realize right off the bat how important it was going to be for me to be a generalist, if you will. I had been a sports writer. I had written business stories. I had written about fashion. I had no expertise in suicide cults, so it was. And we are CNN. People are coming to us first to find out what's going on. So it was a real sort of baptism. From there, the breaking news situation really escalated for me. I worked on the Princess Diana story when it first broke. I was the first person that we called within our unit for John Kennedy's disappearance. And then the real big first break for me was in 1999 with the Columbine shooting. And that was a situation where I was literally sitting in my office. My boss came to me and said, I think we need to send you out, and I didn't come home for a month. So those are how I started my career in this business. It's what can I say? As a journalist, I'm fortunate. For people, it's not so great. So one of those situations is to be involved in Katrina. I spent 2 weeks in Louisiana for Katrina. Terrible for people, exciting for me as a journalist.
I like the language you use, generalist, and we're going to be talking about it on our show next Friday, where we talk about how technology has impacted the way journalists and producers storytell. But we're going to take a quick commercial break, Pamela, and if you'll stay with us, I want to hear about the Shirley Sherrod controversy and how that was impactful for what you do as the senior editorial producer for CNN. I'm Jacquie Jordan. We'll be right back.
The Jacquie Jordan Show with host Jacquie Jordan on TVGuestpert.com. Radio KZSB, 1290 AM Santa Barbara and worldwide.
I'm 15 for a moment, caught in between.
Alex Detail was a child genius who saved the world from the evil harvesters. But a decade later, this mysterious alien force has returned, and Alex is no longer a prodigy. Now, in order to save the world again, he must survive his kidnapping, fight his evil clone, and get his ship to the planet Pluto, where he will uncover the universe's ultimate power. Alex Detail's Revolution, a thrilling new novel by Darren Campo. Buy online or wherever books are sold.
The Jackie Jordan Show, presented by TVGuestpert.com on News Press Radio KZSB 1290 AM Santa Barbara.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Jackie Jordan. We're the industry talk show with the experts, and we are sponsored by CX2wristband.com. It's the wristband that gives you energy, and they also have the holographic chip that helps you sleep at night. I'm joined, and we're in the middle of a conversation with CNN's senior editorial producer, Pamela Sellers, and she's just talking about some of the stories and the news stories that have been impactful on our on our culture and on our society. And one of the stories was the Shirley Sherrod controversy. Pamela, thanks so much for being with us. We wanted to get your take on the Shirley Sherrod story and the controversy around that.
Sure, absolutely. For anyone who's not familiar with Shirley Sherrod, she was a USDA employee who was speaking at an event, and someone had videotaped her comments, or her comments were taken out of context and placed on a blog, a video blog called Breitbart.com. And in the reveal of that tape, she let it be known that she had prejudicial feelings against farmers here in southern Georgia who were white. It spiraled out of control very quickly. By that afternoon, she'd been dismissed by the USDA by Secretary Tom Vilsack. Well, of course, come to find out, when you listen to the entire content, it was from 20 years previous. She was basically telling her audience that we as a society can't afford to be prejudicial like this. We as a society have to get over it. Well, it turned into literally a 3-day rolling news event as people were trying to get the government to respond. People were trying to hear her response. People were trying to find out from Andrew Breitbart, what was he thinking? And it all happened in our backyard here in Georgia. CNN was the first to make contact with Shirley Sherrod. We had the opportunity to have her come into Atlanta and really share her story with us. And we don't usually do this. It's a very unusual sort of situation, but it became a situation where she literally ended up staying with us for about 24 hours as we did different interviews with her. It was very interesting because we had to sit there and watch this individual who was just, Shirley the day before.
Right. These like ordinary people who are thrust into the spotlight. I mean, that hasn't happened to me, but just to be on the peripheral as yourself was in this situation, it's like it's extraordinary to watch to see that happen to a human being. It's really
it is, and time and time again, there is some sort of calm, some sort of composure that happens to a person when they're in environment. It must be the survival instinct of fight or flight. But I've found time and time again when normal people, civilians as we like to call them, when civilians have this happen to them, they get this amazing sense of calm. And if you work with them professionally and honestly with authenticity, you can be very successful in telling their story.
I know for, having done a lot of talk shows, there was an intensity that happened where you felt great compassion for the person. You also felt like you bonded, but then you had to hold the lines because it is just a professional job. Especially when you're like tired, it's intense. Do you ever, have you ever been involved in that type of hand-holding with a story?
Every single time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm very privileged to work with this amazing group of, coincidentally, women. And I don't know why women tend to do this job of being booking producers, but it seems to fit. And our ability to kind of sit down and assess the situation and think on multiple levels of what needs to get done while reflecting compassion really bodes well for this job. That was the case with Shirley Sherrod. It was definitely the case with name any major catastrophe. A producer like me has been there to literally take someone's hand and try to walk them through it and talk them through it.
It's a really weird to know that you're part of the history of it being told. It's just it's a unique point of view that you have. How do you handle the competition? Because there's a lot of now, it used just to be the network competition, and then it became the 24-hour cable networks. There's just a lot of competition to grab a story. How do you handle that, how do you stay focused on it?
Well, we have examples in our business. That last night is a perfect example. Last night we saw the very last live show of Larry King Live, and there was no booking team. I mean, Barbara Walters said it herself on air. There was no booking team in this business that was as successful as Larry King Live's booking
That
producers.
is so true.
They set the bar, and for people like me who never worked with that team, I've worked with them but not been part of their team. They are the ones that set the tempo, and you learn what needs to be done to get things done. Each individual operates in their own sort of way, and the competition, you're right, has never been more fierce. It's not just now about who's on television. It's across all sorts of platforms. It's across all sorts of different medium. I'll never forget the first time when I went to Columbine, and Entertainment Tonight was there. It was a huge reality. When I went to Katrina, it was not just the networks. There were independent documentary film producers who were there who would love to talk to the same people that I was making arrangements with in interviews. You have to keep it in perspective on what you're doing. No doubt you have to have a sense of competition and a sense of pride. You have to go in and fight for what it is you want. But you have to apply your own sense of dignity in what it is you do. And I'm very proud to say CNN, time and time again, you don't hear people complaining about how CNN producers handle them. I don't know if it's because we're in the South or our roots or whatever the case may be, but time and time again, we are told we're a very classy operation, and I'm very proud to be part of that.
Oh, that's beautiful. And, you see that with the Larry King bookings. There's not a lot of bells and whistles to sell on that show. There's a lot of fancy perk. I mean, it's Larry King, and it's like the reputation of the show which sells the bookings. Anderson Cooper is going to have a talk show coming up, and Hurricane Katrina kind of defined his personality as a celebrity journalist. I think we're used to seeing it in network, but that was the time when cable had it. How do you handle that, or what's that like from your perspective?
Well, it's interesting. I think that CNN has always, people like to say that. People like to say that, the networks are the ones that have the faces, the Cronkites, the Jennings, the Barbara Walters. But CNN has had its legacy of brand storytellers going back to the Baghdad Boys in 1991. Peter Arnett, Bernie Shaw, Wolf Blitzer, John Holloman, and then we evolved into Judy Woodruff and, of course, Christiane Amanpour during the Bosnian War. The 90s is where we saw more of a development, more of known brand names like Connie Chung coming into our stables, if you will. But Anderson has, in his own sort of way, really become someone that people can relate to. And he's become such a huge advocate. He's a fantastic journalist. I mean, his brand of keeping them honest, there's not a lot of people that are out there doing that right now. There are individuals who talk about certain types of points and bring up different sorts of things, but Anderson will literally sit down and go through details point by point. Last night he did a whole entire segment on the Obama birth certificate controversy where he used sources and literally showed the viewers what the short form birth certificate looked like. You just don't see that in journalism anymore, and I'm very proud to say that he does that. I'm also really looking forward to what Piers Morgan is going to bring. I mean, he's going to come in, he's going to take over for Larry King, and he's going to bring some very interesting perspective in his interview. The other person I think is really taking us into this next century, if you will, for CNN in terms of branded storytellers is Sanjay Gupta. The man can really do anything, and he's a doctor to boot.
Yeah,
and it's a privilege to work with great storytellers like these great actors.
Well, Pamela, thank you so much. I know you are really proud to be working for CNN, but I'm so sure that CNN is very proud to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. Up next, we've got Shari and Brille, Media Industry Analyst. I'm Jacquie Jordan, and you're listening to the Industry Talk Show with the experts. We'll be right back.
The Jacquie Jordan Show with host Jacquie Jordan on TVGuestpert.com, Radio KZSB, 1290 AM Santa Barbara and worldwide.
For a moment, I'm still the man, but you see I'm there.
Alex Detail was a child genius who saved the world from the evil harvesters. But a decade later, this mysterious alien force has returned, and Alex is no longer a prodigy. Now, in order to save the world again, he must survive his kidnapping, fight his evil clone, and get his ship to the planet Pluto, where he will uncover the universe's ultimate power. Alex Detail's Revolution, a thrilling new novel by Darren Campo. Buy online or wherever books are sold.
The Jacquie Jordan Show, presented by TVGuestpert.com on News Press Radio KZSB 1290 AM Santa Barbara.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jordan, and it's a rainy Friday afternoon, a week before Christmas. And we're talking with different industry experts about some of the stories that impacted us over the last year, 2010, and the upcoming year, and how that's affecting us personally. And joining us now on the phone is media industry analyst Shari Brille, who writes the Brille Beat. And you can find out more about her on the starryeye.com. Shari, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Jackie.
Thank you. I know you've been listening, and I hope you've been having a really, really good time. What are some of the strange stories that, because, you witness it a little bit from a different perspective than our last guest does. But what are some of the stories that impacted you or that you think are monumental in this past year?
Well, actually, to Pamela's point, I did watch the finale, and it was just so heartwarming to see Bill Maher and Ryan Seacrest sitting side by side and telling stories, and the turnout with all the anchor people from the evening news show. And it's truly a 25-year legacy coming to an end. And I wish Piers Morgan good luck. He has a very different style. He has such an acerbic wit, and I really look forward to seeing what he does. Starting early January.
That's a great acknowledgement. That's a fantastic acknowledgement. And what else of the past year has kind of shaped the fabric of 2010?
Oh, there are so many things that have entered the popular zeitgeist. I don't even know where to begin. But I think I'll start with Dancing with the Stars, because that show this past fall, season 11, became a de facto metaphor for the upcoming 2012 elections. And it was the Bristol factor. People who would normally come to the show...
The Bristol factor, or the Bristol conspiracy, I think, as some people have called it. It's certainly curious.
Well, it's always been a curiosity for me that you never see what the votes are. And I know that there were so many Tea Party websites, dedicated to giving all of their minions information that they needed to dial in and vote for Sarah's kid. And also they were propped up by another website called votefortheworst.com, and this year's poster child was also Bristol Palin. But they were put on the map years ago on American Idol Season 6 when we had the Sanjaya factor. He was the contestant everyone loved to hate. And this year, people were so riled up over Bristol being on the show and getting voted through week after week. And when Brandy was voted out, all hell broke loose. And that was when, I guess the blue states came in and started calling up and voting. And it became so crazy that it literally, during the finale, ABC's servers and phone lines were overwhelmed. That was really fascinating to watch. And I'm hoping that maybe in the run-up to the 2012 election, you'll have, maybe you'll see Christine O'Donnell and Carl Palladino showing up as contestants. This is my dream list.
I was going to say, yeah, I love that. I love your perspective.
Thank you.
So this is part of your dream list.
It's fun. And, again, as I mentioned, American Idol next year will be quite interesting because in its 10th season there are so many sweeping changes taking place. Simon Free for the first time, 2 new judges, and Steve Tyler and J-Lo, and a lot of other changes in terms of how the contestants will be mentored, changes in the Hollywood round. That will be interesting to see where that goes. And, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Paula Abdul's little show that's going to be coming out called Live to Dance, and she's going to be host and judge, and, because she has that choreographer background, she might be more in her element this time.
That's a really, really good point. In our previous conversation that you and I had, you also mentioned about, that we don't see how the votes are actually tallied or scored. And it was, I think through information with you that you had explained that AT&T went to Chris Allen's hometown when he was a contestant. Do you want to explain that to those who are listening to us?
Yes, there was this story that AT&T came to Chris Allen's hometown and taught them all how to do mass texting. Now, keep in mind that AT&T is also the one of the corporate sponsors who has a big placement on American Idol. But again, I think the biggest issue is we don't know what the votes are. I don't know the numbers. I think American Idol may say how many total votes came in, but you never see the distribution.
Yeah, we're not inciting a conspiracy, but there was legislation in the 60s to regulate game shows. These voter contest shows, don't have the same. And I know I'm considered an unscripted producer that's the genre of television that I do, but there has never been a program or a show or a segment that I've ever produced that is not written in script. And also in reality they call them story editors, but it's all scripted, even though they call my genre unscripted. So from what I hear you're saying is that, we don't really know how these, the call-in shows are necessarily managed or calculated or handled.
Right, and with with Dancing with the Stars, my feeling is I think the show would have been damaged if Bristol had one in the end.
Yeah, probably.
It could have, hurt the franchise a little bit. In the end, the best dancer did win, but do you know if that what really happened? Because it was a mix of the popular vote and a weighted score with what the judges gave out in terms of points. So you just never know. Not that I'm calling for a congressional investigation.
They're busy enough.
They have more important things they need to get done. Like taking care of the rescue workers for openers. But I digress.
That's okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm here with media industry analyst Shari Ann Brille. Shari Ann, when we come back, I want to find out what your game changer was from 2010. And we also want to know where the new tourist destination is going to be for 2011. I'm Jackie Jordan. You're listening to The Jackie Jordan Show, presented by TVGuestspert.com, and we'll be right back.
The Jackie Jordan Show with host Jackie Jordan on TVGuestspert.com. Radio KZSB, 1290 AM Santa Barbara and worldwide.
We're moving on.
Alex Detail was a child genius who saved the world from the evil harvesters. But a decade later, this mysterious alien force has returned, and Alex is no longer a prodigy. Now, in order to save the world again, he must survive his kidnapping, fight his evil clone, and get his ship to the planet Pluto, where he will uncover the universe's ultimate power. Alex Detail's Revolution, a thrilling new novel by Darren Campo. Buy online or wherever books are sold.
Sometimes you fall down, can't get back up, while hiding behind skin and stood tough.
The Jackie Jordan Show, presented by TVGuestspert.com on News Press Radio KZSB 1290 AM Santa Barbara.
Thanks for joining us on this wet drive home tonight. I'm Jackie Jordan. We're hosted here by TVGuestspert.com, and we're also sponsored by the non-pharmaceutical hologram chip that helps you sleep at night and gives you energy during the day. Find out more at cx2wristband.com. We've been talking this hour about some of the stories, the media stories that have impacted us from 2010 and 2011 on a big collective level, cultural zeitgeist level, and also we'll be talking later this hour about how it affected us on a personal level and how, where we what we do with that information. And also next week, if you're going to be joining us, we're going to talk about how information and technology has changed the way we handle the news. Joining us still is Shari Brille, media industry analyst, and she is also the blogger for the Brille Beat, which you can find out more about her writing, and I encourage you to do so because she's got a great perspective. And you can find out more at the Starry Eye, and that's 2rs.com. Shari, so I wanted to know what you considered the 2010 game changer.
All right. I am a big fan of Real Time with Bill Maher because he gets such great guests, and it's funny, it's riveting, but in a million years, this came as such a surprise, and I believe it really impacted a lot of the recent midterm elections. And what happened was when he was host of Politically Correct, he had a much younger Christine O'Donnell on as a frequent guest. And wouldn't you know it, because he has so much love for the Tea Party group, that he brought out some vintage footage and shared it with his audience. And with the advent of technology, this old video of Christine O'Donnell where she talked about how she dabbled in witchcraft, it went viral. It was picked up by the national news bureaus. It was made fun of on Saturday Night Live. And people who had never heard of this little New Hampshire candidate suddenly said, "Oh my God, what the hell is going on here?"
Yeah.
And it became the story of the fall. And it really, it makes sense. People think hoarding is a bad thing, but I applaud Bill Maher for saving stuff. This was priceless.
That's one way of looking at hoarding. I like to call it archiving footage, but that's really great. What do you think about Wikileaks?
Wikileaks, there's so much that can be said about it. It is a huge event. If you go back to Daniel Ellsberg, he was also treated as an enemy, but his release of the Pentagon Papers showed how much was going on behind the scenes, and how even though it was being said that the war was going to be pulled back, it was actually being escalated. And of course, the backlash that he received for being an enemy and crazy. They went in and got his files from a psychiatrist's office. So he was badly chastised. Now, with WikiLeaks, there could be some embarrassing things. There could be things that could potentially jeopardize security. I don't know. But I think if people are out and out, making up falsehoods, and, there's been so much controversy surrounding the run-up to the Iraqi war, that, maybe there's a place for something like that. But I think the type of information that gets out there has to be vetted. I don't think you could just put it all out there because people can be endangered.
Thank you for that. Shari Ann, I know you're very popular on Twitter, and this is where I learned it, but 2011, there is going to be a popular tourist destination. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. This is, sometimes truth is more insane than fiction, but believe it or not, the site of the worst nuclear accident in history is going to be a tourist attraction.
I know my boyfriend was there 2 weeks before the big accident had happened, and I don't know if this isn't the biggest spin. I don't know what is.
I don't know, but all I know is they are saying the radiation risks are negligible. And, I don't know if that means it's, worse than getting a dental x-ray or more milder than getting, an x-ray take. I don't know. All I know is I think this year I'm going to play it low-key and just go to 3 Mile Island.
So we're talking about Chernobyl, and they actually have a tourist bureau for Chernobyl. So, I kind of tried to give this some thought. I'm like, is it like, I know people do pilgrimages back to Auschwitz, and places like that. What is the draw for going to Chernobyl?
I don't know. I really don't know. This was a horrible nuclear accident. There could be trace levels of radiation. Auschwitz was a human disaster where people were intentionally murdered. Very different thing. Nobody was intentionally murdered in
I'm just
Chernobyl.
trying to figure out one selling point for going to Chernobyl. Aside from it's cold, I don't know what it is. I hear it's nice in April. I'm being told it's nice in April.
Yeah, I think there's, I would rather go for ecotourism than reverse ecotourism.
Yes.
Personally.
Where do you find some of the stories that you report on and write about?
Well, I'm one of those Luddites. I actually like to read physical newspapers. So I'll go through the New York Times, and I'll see some of these stories that jump out. Actually, another one that I read about, and this one is even funnier, is I don't know if you were a Seinfeld fan.
Oh, absolutely.
You remember that holiday Festivus?
Yes.
Well, some inmate claimed that it was his religion in order to get kosher food.
That's amazing.
And they fell for it for 2 months until somebody who was familiar with the cultural zeitgeist remembered that it was in a 1997 episode of Seinfeld.
Our studio producer, Richard Dugan, remembers that episode.
Yeah, and he got away with it. And then they finally threw out the order, so now the poor man's going to have to eat that nasty salami that they give them several times a day.
You got to give them credit for trying. Shari Ann Brille, media industry analyst, the Brille Beat. You can find her on thestarryeye.com, and that's 2 R's for Starry Eye. Shari Ann, thank you so much for joining us. When we come back, we've got TV guest expert and executive coach, author of Me Inc. and the Power of Positive Thinking in Business, Scott Ventrella. We'll be right back.
The Jackie Jordan Show with host Jackie Jordan on TVGuestpert.com. Radio KZSB, 1290 AM Santa Barbara and worldwide.
Alex Detail was a child genius who saved the world from the evil harvesters. But a decade later, this mysterious alien force has returned, and Alex is no longer a prodigy. Now, in order to save the world again, he must survive his kidnapping, fight his evil clone, and get his ship to the planet Pluto, where he will uncover the universe's ultimate power. Alex Detail's Revolution, a thrilling new novel by Darren Campo. Buy online or wherever books are sold.
The Jackie Jordan Show, presented by TVGuestpert.com on Newspress Radio KZSB 1290 AM Santa Barbara.
You never know a good thing till it's gone. You never see.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jordan, and we're bumping in with Chris Allen music from American Idol, and I swear there's no conspiracy there. Just a coincidence that came up. We're talking about some of the biggest media stories with different industry experts here that shaped us in 2010 and 2011. And joining us now on the line, we have TV guestpert and executive coach of Positive Dynamics, author of Me Inc. and the Power of Positive Thinking in Business. He was on a plane yesterday from Chicago back to New York, where he's calling us from. Scott Ventrella, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I am fantastic, Jackie. Good speaking with you.
Likewise. So, you have you kind of play like both sides of the working dynamic in your coaching career. Do you want to give us a brief background about that to kind of set up what we're going to be talking about with you?
Yeah, well, going way back, I was actually trained in graduate school as a psychotherapist, and I thought that my interest was in working with individuals to help them through life's problems and challenges. And but so much of that was kind of mired in the negative that I decided. And also, by the way, to make a living, I decided that I need to do something that would maybe pay a little bit more, and also in the spirit of helping people, but more in the positive way. And that's where I began to branch out into more of the corporate environment. And I'm going back, at least a couple of decades. So over the years, I've actually worked with both individuals on an individual level. That's probably known today as more along the lines of personal coaching.
Well, you know what I like about your approach to it is you take the problem, but you work in the solution and you bring it out into people's professional lives.
Well,
which is the payoff for really good recovery therapy or coaching.
And that's right. Even though there is a difference between personal and professional or executive coaching, I look at the individual, holistically. And there are many different aspects to life, and you can't just zoom in on one area without considering the other areas that impact life.
We've been talking with several industry experts this past hour about some of the media stories that shaped them from the different perspectives. One is an observer, one is a producer who helps facilitate getting the story out into the media. You're on the other end of it. Media impacts what you do, and it also impacts the people that you coach. Can you talk about some of the stories or how that relates to the type of work that you do?
Yeah, I would say, obviously one of the biggest stories going on in 2010, starting in 2008, and probably, continuing through 2011, is the economy and the high unemployment rate. And obviously, the media plays a big role in that they're on a daily basis not only reporting the statistics, which are sobering, and there's been a kind of a mixed bag, Jackie. Good news mixed with some bad news, depending on what you're looking at, whether it's housing or unemployment, investments now the companies are making. But clearly, that makes a huge impact on the people that I'm dealing with, in that it shapes kind of the way they think and feel about their personal life and as well as their professional life, their careers.
What I think is really interesting, and I have to do this even with with myself, is I have to have a sense of discernment about how much media information I can take in. There's things I can hear, and I don't mind hearing it, but I have to watch the level of penetration that I allow a particular story to affect me. But there's also been some really great stories that have affected change in me. So how do you filter that with your clients or discern that kind of information? Because when you're working with executive coaches and you're telling them, where they're hearing that the unemployment isn't good and that the housing market these are people who are like into survival. They've got families. They've got mortgages. Like, how do you, it's scary news. You can't put your head in the sand and pretend you're not hearing it.
No, I think that's a valid point. I do when I'm working with people because you can't go any place any longer, whether it's a restaurant or the airport or a car wash for that matter.
That's funny.
Without having this information blasting at you, and that does kind of work. There's a psychology behind that. It tends to, people are riveted, and you're hearing a lot. You're hearing a lot of fear talk. And it gets people, worked up into a state. So one of the things just for starters, is I advise folks, and this is not burying your head in the sand, but tune out some of the noise, because it's going to be very hard to be objective when you're all hyped up from all the fear talk, and you want to really keep a clear head in times like these, and that'll put you in a better position to kind of lay out a plan, a carefully thought through plan for what you need to do next.
Scott, you're fantastic. It's a privilege to have you as a TV guestspert. You can find out more about Scott Ventrella on tvguestspert.com or on Scott's website, Positive Dynamics. He is the author of Me, Inc. and the Power of Positive Thinking in Business. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jackie Jordan. Today we're presented by tvguestspert.com and sponsored by CX2wristband.com, the non-pharmaceutical hologram chip that helps you sleep at night and gives you energy during the day. Thank you so much to my team and staff who help put this great show together on a weekly basis. I'm Jackie Jordan. Have a great week and a great drive home.